All right, we're back for another show, and I've got Evan Gitomer with me. Thanks for joining me, Evan.
Appreciate it, Andrew. Glad to be here.
Well, you got such a cool background from the majors to the agency, and kind of start off by just giving us a little bit of background of where you've been, some of the roles that you've had, and up until where you're at now.
Sure. I have quite a few polo shirts. That's probably the easiest way to put it. I started my career with the Philadelphia Eagles. So I kind of did our sports inside sales program, as everybody seems to call them, with the Eagles all the way back in 2001. I sold Veterans Stadium with this infamous 700 level that wasn't a great place for visiting fans to be. Sometimes Eagles fans too.
I used to go there as a kid. I mean, and I grew up a Cowboy fan, but would never wear Cowboy stuff there.
On the 700 level. You probably remember then. There was two sections between these two giant scoreboards all the way up in the 700 level. That's the only place we had seats. So I sold seats that you could come to the game. You couldn't tell what the score was. You couldn't see any replays, anything like that, but you were in the building.
Right.
And yeah, people would buy them. So that's kind of my inside sales experience. Stayed on with them and got a chance to sell Lincoln Financial Field and sell seat licenses and club seats, and kind of got a first taste of new buildings, new venues, which was pretty large, a large part of my career moving forward. But what I learned pretty quickly was that actually what you do when you sell a new venue is you sell yourself out of a job. So that's what we did. We sold all the inventory. It was all locked up for long periods of time. So the sales department shrunk very quickly. I needed to get a new job, and I went to New Orleans with the Saints. Spent not quite 3 years, almost 3 years there. It was much different. Philadelphia's a major metroplex. New Orleans had one Fortune 500 company driven by tourism. This is pre-Hurricane Katrina, which made it even different. But we had a lot of other things to do. Like we had to sell group tickets. I never sold those before. We had to deal with a lot more individuals where I was dealing with business people before. We had an arena football team, so I got a chance to sell arena football on top of it. So good overall experience. Spent a good period of time there, got promoted, oversaw a little satellite office we had at the Superdome. And really enjoyed the experience in New Orleans, but had this itch, kind of like that premium B2B type selling thing. So then my boss from the Eagles called me up and said, hey, I just took a job in Phoenix. I'm going to come sell hockey in the desert. It's only 116 degrees here today. I'll do it 116. Like, that sounds good to me.
It's a good spot to come inside, cool off.
Exactly. So went out to Phoenix, took my first premium sales job with the Phoenix Coyotes. They did a great job putting together a tremendous staff, tons of people that work there in 05 and 06 now. They're gone to great, amazing things in the sports industry. So great experience working there, and also just kind of getting a good network of people. Not that I didn't already start to have one from where I'd worked previously, but certainly helped grow that. But I was number one sales guy on the board, so I was pretty proud of that, pretty excited about it.
Just selling premium there, or were you cross-selling there?
So it was funny. So we were premium sellers. They called us senior account executives, but for the most part, we were there to sell premium. But it was full menu selling. It was full menu selling. Sometimes that worked great. Sometimes it didn't. I'll tell you, I didn't do a great job selling the cheap stuff. I really tried to sell the expensive stuff. The other crazy thing, and it's something to think about kind of as we're sitting in this COVID situation now, I don't know if it was the plan coming in. It wasn't described to me as I was interviewing for it, but we had a book of business. So I also dealt with current clients as well. And this was the NHL coming off a 14-month lockout. So their staff had dwindled down to nothing. And it was really like selling. They very, very actively had to sell. Well, had to very actively sell current clients to get them to come back. So, depending how long this thing goes and how long people are sitting out there in the netherworld where we don't know when they're going to get back in buildings, it may be something. I know I'm thinking about it in terms of how I want to make sure that we move forward in my current responsibilities. But something.
What was the main difference when you were doing that, when you were coming out of that? What kind of stuff did you have to do to be successful?
You really had to treat it like a sale. You know what?
Okay.
Where you, sometimes, I mean, there's teams out there that just send out invoices and
It's a
80% of them come back.
transaction.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You chase the 20%. Like, no, we were.
I haven't been with any of those teams, unfortunately. I'm hoping I get there one day.
I hear they exist. I remember I told you about that Eagles job. That's
Yeah.
actually the last time I worked with a team that made the postseason. So that was 2002. So it's
Oh, wow.
been quite a while for me. Um, but uh, but no, you know, it was selling. It was really actively selling. You had to do the relationship thing. You had to really invest time, energy, and effort, and really put who the team deemed to be their top salespeople, their top relationship builders, or most adept people in charge of bringing back that type of business. Because, I mean, Andrew, you've been in business a long time too. Like, we can sell a lot of new stuff, but if we don't hit renewal thresholds, like, we're in a lot of trouble. Like, you can't bring in 80% new and with 20%
Every year.
renewal,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, if I can get to 85% renewal, I could probably make up that last 15% new business, right?
Yeah.
So that was something to keep in mind. From there, I was kind of brash. I really wanted a management job. I kind of got a taste of that in New Orleans. So um, I was part of a group in New Orleans that went to Las Vegas. When the Arena Football League first went to Las Vegas for a neutral site Arena Bowl, they brought 4 people from around the league to help sell it. It was
Okay.
like 2.5 or 3 weeks. So I was one of those 4 people. So I went out there, got to meet a lot of a lot of the league folks and quite a few other people out there. It's a tough sell in Vegas. But
That was tough. Yeah.
the guy who was running the sales department in Phoenix came down with some health complications. They needed somebody quick. They knew I was there for some of the relationships they built, and called me up and said, "Hey, you can come lead a sales department here in Arizona." I said, "Oh, that sounds perfect." It was going to be a pay cut, but hey, you know what? Sometimes you do that for responsibility, and I, for some reason,
Sometimes that title, comes with a cost.
that's exactly it. Yeah. I trust me. I was what, probably 24 at that point in time, so I knew everything.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, so I jumped at that opportunity. It was great. Like, I got a first chance to hire, fire, lead, develop things, create my own budget, get a game plan together. So that was all exciting. The league at the time was going through some challenges though, and I wouldn't say the writing was on the wall, but there were certainly times we were worried whether or not your paycheck was going to cash. Uh, I, I mean, I didn't necessarily want to leave, but I got a phone call, and again, this is probably something talking to myself 12 years ago. I'd say, like, stop taking every phone call you get.
It's
I
tough. I mean,
appreciate the date.
it makes you feel good when you get those
Right.
calls too.
It
It's like,
does.
okay, yeah.
It does. Right. So
I
I
mean,
said,
but
oh,
Arizona was one of probably the top teams in AFL, I think, from a just historical standpoint. And they usually, what I remember is they always had great support. So,
yeah.
I mean, but probably right around that time is when the NFL was getting out of it, or pretty close. I think some of those NFL owners were in it, like right around that time, I think.
Yeah. So in our situation in Phoenix, the team was owned by the Suns. So they played in U.S. Airways Center, which is not what it's called anymore. It's Talking Stick still, Talking Stick, Talking Stick Arena. But the team had been sold a few years back. So all of a sudden, a lot of the costs that were shared with other parts of the business all of a sudden weren't anymore.
Yeah, and it's a tough business with only 8 to 10 home dates.
Yeah, very much so. No TV money coming in, things like
Yeah.
that. So it's all about people coming in the building.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did well, and there was good history there. Through some of the changes, there were some loss, just again in terms of staff and staying up with people, but we did well. I'd say we were middle of the pack in terms of attendance numbers and how we did. And I was there about a year and a half, and we did very, very well in terms of new business. Our corporate business was, again, about middle of the pack, but for the most part, teams were struggling in the Arena League.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why I took the call, or maybe, like you said, it was just feeling good about feeling wanted. I probably would tell you it's more the latter than the.
Yeah.
But I'm from Philadelphia originally. This was a call to go back to the East Coast, to go to New York with the Brooklyn Nets. At that time, they were New Jersey Nets, but I was going to run suite sales for the Barclays Center.
Nice.
I was going to be the suite sales manager for Barclays. Sounded too good to be true. We're going to open a sales center in the middle of Times Square, and I was going to get to open what we promised to be a very unique NBA building. Um, so sounded too good to pass up. Now, the challenge around that is that it's really super hard to build anything in New York City. Uh, I left, I went there in 2007. Uh, Building was supposed to open in 2009. Within 3 months, it was pushed back 3 years. Like it was crazy. Um, so I got a call from an old colleague about a job in Kansas City to run ticket sales and operations and service and kind of get a chance to manage a large group of people with the Kansas City Wizards, or Sporting Kansas City, as they're now known. So I jumped at that. It seemed to make sense. Again, I was kind of thinking that managing a lot of people was going to help me get to where I wanted to go long term. So did that for a couple of years.
Were you Brian Roth's boss?
I was Brian Roth's boss.
Oh my God.
I was one of them. He had many. It was kind of
man, I love Brian, man.
Yeah.
He was I hired him as my director of tickets in St. Louis. Man, he killed it on selling tickets in St. Louis. I'll tell you that. Absolutely killed it.
That is the perfect job for him. He's the most passionate soccer person I've ever come across in my entire life.
By far, there's no indoor soccer.
Correct.
Like at least for me, but yeah, no, he's great, man. I was always busting his balls, man. It was good.
He's great. He's great. I've really appreciated just kind of following his path from when we were together back in Kansas City. He was great because you always knew there was such passion there. Like no matter what he was going to do, he was going to work insanely hard to do it. And I felt like as long as you kind of directed him a little bit this way or the other, you couldn't go too far because Brian, he had his vision, and anyone to make sure that his vision was heard, he could impact the company in his vision. But like, okay, Brian, we're just going to steer this way, that way a little bit. Memories of him we did an exhibition game at SLU, St. Louis University.
Oh.
Which was like a homecoming for him, and that.
Yeah.
I remember being out there and just seeing him beam with pride as we're out there running around. It was in July. It was like 190 degrees or something, maybe 185, which was insanely hot. But Brian didn't care. He would do that every day of the year if he could.
Dude, I'm telling you, when we started the St. Louis Ambush, he was my first person we hired. So it was him, me, and my wife. And so that was the team, for the first few months until we set up. But that dude was at every event I asked him to be at, never complained. And he wouldn't let people, tell him no for tickets. And but if there's ever a jeopardy for like indoor soccer, there's nobody that will ever beat this guy. So
he's training for it still. I'm sure he's still. I haven't asked him recently, but I'm sure he still watches the old videos, the old tape.
He does. Yeah. He does. I just talked to him about let's get those videos on YouTube, share them with the world.
Right.
But he will know if you ask him about a game in 1985, who scored in the second quarter. It's. I'm not exaggerating that. He's crazy like that. But anyway, sorry. I saw the connection. I had to at least see how.
No, that's half the fun of doing what we do. Like we're in this business, we overlap different places, we meet different people.
Yeah.
So let's see, Kansas City, there were some changes in terms of what was going on up top. I was pretty burnt out, and I didn't see it to opening the building. We worked on a lot of the stuff. I helped come up with the premium plan going into the building, things like that. I was there for groundbreaking, put the first steel in the ground for the building, everything like that. But okay, like it just didn't fit anymore, and that happens at times. So after that, I went to, actually, I did a little bit of consulting work. I convinced myself I was going to be a consultant. Worked with Mandalay, who's more known for minor league baseball, or used to be. At that point, they were working on the ACC football championship to help them build up their first team to help sell that. Did a couple other things outside of sports, like a wireless infrastructure company, a real estate company, team that a organization agency that did a lot with big boards in stadiums, so like graphics and games and all those different things. Thought it was kind of cool. My wife hated it because consulting, like you don't get that paycheck every 2 weeks. Like you get
Right.
giant paychecks sometimes, and sometimes you don't. But
Sometimes it's great being a consultant, and sometimes not so great.
yeah, I liked it for a while. But I chose to go to Orlando. I got a call again. Maybe this goes back to this whole just feeling wanted thing. Um, who knew you're gonna have a session that's like me laying on the couch today, Andrew? Uh,
This is great. I
about
love it.
myself. But or the Orlando Magic called. Everything lined up. It was a great fit. The wife liked it. My parents had moved down to Tampa from Philly, so it was going to be close to them.
Nice.
So
What
jumped.
part of Orlando did you live in?
I lived in Baldwin Park.
Okay, awesome area.
Yeah,
I lived
Baldwin
in
Park.
Celebration and Windermere,
Okay.
between the two spots.
Yeah, yeah. So we loved it. We loved it. Actually, we lived in Baldwin Park. We built a house, custom built a house just outside of it. So I was there for like a year and said custom built a house, which made a ton of sense because that's when Van Wagner started calling. They're like, wait a minute, you worked on a few buildings. Uh, the guy who was our VP of sales of the Eagles was running a project for Van Wagner with the Minnesota Vikings. So Van Wagner was in charge of all seat licenses and suites and club seats for the Vikings for their stadium. And again, we had that connection from back in Philly. And he said, yeah, I think we might get this deal going with the Braves. What do you think about running it for us? Well, we just custom built this house. My wife's pregnant with our first kid. Uh, no, I don't think I want it. And then he called back, and he called back again, and man, all right, maybe I should hear these guys out. And yeah, I think I lived in that house for 4 months. Uh,
Yeah.
or if you ever have a real estate podcast, I think I've bought five houses in 9 years. So
Wow.
4 of them new
That's
construction.
that is the downside about trying to continue to grow in this business, because a lot of times there's not opportunities within the organization you're at unless somebody moves on or retires. So
Yeah, yeah,
it does get old. I know my wife's like, look, I'm tired of moving. So I said, look, I need maybe 2 more moves yet in our life, and that's it. So,
right. And one's the retirement loan, right? So it's some
yeah,
remote island somewhere.
exactly.
Yeah. It is crazy. I mean, that's one of the challenging parts of doing what we do. I don't know if all the stuff we're going through collectively now and us getting so comfortable on Zoom is going to change that. From an agency perspective, I think it does. So I went from Orlando to Atlanta to run our Atlanta Braves project. I had to be on site for that. We handled their 5,500 most expensive seats, built up a staff there, ran their sales center. We also dealt with a lot of their sponsorship stuff. So we helped consult with them on naming rights for the building. We helped with their high-level partnerships. We helped with technology. We did a whole lot with Braves. Very, very good relationship with the Braves.
So like when you do something like that, is that just kind of like a short-term contract? So like when you took that position, okay, well, we're only there until we sell out or opening day. Is that kind of how those
Yeah.
work? Or
It goes back to that Philly example. So again, remember back in those Eagles days, like I was part of a sales team that sold out.
and you
then
put yourself out of
right. So
yeah.
when I did that for the Eagles, when I did it for Barclays Center, like I was hired by the team to more or less do the same exact thing. I was going to be there to see it through, get a bunch of things sold on contract, and then have to look for something else. So at that point in time, Van Wagner, when we did reach the end of the Braves project, Van Wagner did promote me to oversee all of our ticketing relationships,
Okay.
which meant that I didn't necessarily have to go seek out something else. Which our relationship, and we worked with the Atlanta Hawks and helped them with a lot of their renovation work. Worked with the Texas Rangers, DC United.
So with Van Wagner, how have they been around for a while? I remember, I mean, about when you went to Atlanta is probably when I first started hearing them and seeing their name out there, but it could just be because I started looking at opportunities. I mean, have they been around for a while or?
It's an older company. It was created in the 70s. It's an outdoor billboard company.
Gotcha.
All the Times Square billboards, all the bright lights.
Okay.
There at one point were Van Wagner boards. And that business grew exponentially, and then we kind of started taking on some sports work. A company called Dorna, we bought the U.S. rights to in 95 or 96, I don't know, top of my head. But that's rotational signage you see behind the plate at Major League Baseball games, the check-in table for NBA games.
So you guys are you guys kind of like the Learfield of that? Like, how Learfield buys the media rights to that and then they go out and resell it? Is that kind of
Yeah, in that space we are. We'll give the team a
just
price.
on the pro side?
Yeah, yeah, very much so. And actually, we're in some college venues as well. So
Okay.
it's stuff that you can kind of sell. I mean, if you think about it, it's almost like, uh, you're a New York company, you want to get on the Yankees fans' radar, but you don't want to pay Yankees prices. You take
Right.
their series in Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
You put your brand behind home plate when the Yankees are batting, whatever it is. So you just sell it a little bit differently.
Gotcha.
So we've been in that for 20 plus years now. And then we were more a naming rights companies. Like our ticketing division started with the Vikings.
Okay.
It started the Vikings. We were working with the Vikings on naming rights for their building. And one night at dinner, their people were talking to our people about how they wanted to outsource ticketing. They didn't have the internal resources for it. They were kind of upset that there was really only one player in the field. And I'm not going to say anything bad about them. They do a pretty good job, but Legends was really the only player out there at that point in time. And we said, well, no, we can do it too. And they said, really? And next thing you know, we had to figure out how we're going to do ticketing. So,
Yeah. Well, let's figure it out now.
right,
Yeah.
right. So they hired Lyle Boss from Philly, brought him in to run it. And then that kind of was the birth of Van Wagner Ticket. So our relationships are always a little bit different. Like for the Braves, we had a large team on staff. For the Hawks, it was really just me and some of our other folks doing consulting to help them figure out how to do things. The Hawks had 65 or 70 sellers. They didn't need more people. They needed a strategic direction on how to do it. The Rangers was kind of a hybrid of the two. I'm actually in Dallas now. We just finished up our relationship with the Rangers a few weeks ago. But I was on site for 2 years.
Are you in their offices basically, or do you guys have your own office?
Typically, we're in their office because we use a lot of their infrastructure. Like we'll have our people live in their ticketing system, in their CRM system.
Yep.
It's valuable stuff, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, we hire and fire everybody, right? So there's not the staffing up that happens on the team. They don't have to feel terrible about firing a bunch of folks at the end of it. And we've done it a few times. Crazy enough, but when you put together all the renovations and new builds I've worked on now, I'm up to 7 that I've worked on in some capacity.
Wow.
So at the major league level. So it's, I'm not going to tell you that I'm the end all be all expert on it, but you do start to pick up on some things.
I mean, when you're doing it multiple times and multiple your learning curve is a lot less than somebody else that hasn't done it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you how did you like going from a team to the agency side? Like, what are kind of the pros and cons that you've seen on that?
Well, we have to pitch teams. So I'm not in the driver's seat per se. We have to go out there and we have to seek their business. So team is still top of the totem pole, right? I mean, they're the ones that are driving so many things, all these different tech companies or third-party agencies that come in. They'll have to get money from the teams to survive, right? At the same time, I think it's better for just a global outlook on things. We analyze every single sales meeting we do with the Braves. And then we can take that knowledge and use it on Viking stuff or Hawks stuff or DC United or the Pacers or the Rangers. Like any of the people that we're going to work with, they also get that knowledge set, which doesn't always happen at the team level. Leagues do a good job, some better than others, to try and share information, but we have firsthand knowledge. And it's not just.
It's truly the same company. I mean, you definitely want to be helping it's not like the other team, in the league. So I definitely see that.
Right. Well, and I've also been on this team side where you report and you don't always want to look bad in front of your peers, other teams. So it's like, oh, well, how can you make sure this looks a little better than last year? Right. And again, it's not malicious. Like the intent is not malicious, but the reality of it could be a little bit different. So we're impartial.
So with the most recent role in Dallas, so are you over that plus still over the ticketing throughout the company?
Yeah. In theory, I wasn't supposed to come to Texas.
Okay.
I told you I buy a lot of houses. We bought a house in Atlanta. Again, new construction, brand new. And we lived there think that one was closer to 9 months. But
How long have you been in Dallas?
we've been in Dallas in a brand new house, new construction, for, let's see, the whole family moved here in September. It's whenever my wife gets pregnant. She only moves while she's pregnant.
So she do now? Like, I mean, do we need
No,
to, are we
no,
looking somewhere?
I don't know. I should go check on that actually. No, this is, well, I guess this means we can't leave. Uh, but no, we've been here.
Dallas is a great area. I'd love to live in Dallas. It's one of the cities that I would definitely.
It's crazy. It has everything here, but it's so spread out. And
It
I don't
is.
know if it's growing up in the Northeast. I'm like, oh, it's so easy for me to hop on the train and Philly and get down to DC or New York.
Yeah.
Or like I feel every time I do anything here, I'm in the car for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's a little challenging for me to get used to. But there's lots of good things to say about the area. I mean, no state income tax in Texas is great. My kids like it. I'm an Eagles guy. I grew up there, and I took my first job, and we're in the heart of Cowboys country. But
Yeah.
most of my kids don't get the wrong idea on who to root for. I'm fine here.
Yeah. That would be probably pretty bad, huh? I mean, that's my dad brainwashed me as a kid. That's why I like the Cowboys growing up in Pennsylvania. So I used to hear about it all the time.
So that's good. So brainwashing works because that's the exact way I'm treating my kids. So yeah,
exactly. You got to.
The point.
How old are your kids?
They're young. So I have a 4.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old.
Oh wow, so it's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of work. I'm kind of at the tail end. My oldest is 23. She lives in Tampa, and I have a 16-year-old in high school. So yeah, I'm like, man, I got a couple of years left. Hopefully, then the empty house. So
I'm
started young.
Send mine out for a few months or something just to revisit. Just let me know.
Yeah.
A 2-3 month hiatus on the kids. We love them.
Yeah.
Especially during times like we've had over the last few months. Plenty of time with my children.
Working from home. So how has everything kind of affected, what you're working on? So did the Rangers deal end because of contract was over or due to COVID?
It ended. It kind of overlapped. I mean, again, the ballpark was scheduled to open the end of March. Our relationship was going to end shortly after opening day. So it all kind of came together. Just where I think we closed up shop a couple weeks earlier than we contractually obligated to, but it made sense. Like no one was doing anything.
Yeah.
They're just trying to do their best to make ends meet, and no one was coming in the office, and not a whole lot of selling was taking place. We were there to help them with their high-end premium and some of their high-end sponsorship stuff. And for the most part, most of that work had been done. We had some other projects going as well, which we had to shut down. And I think that's pretty typical on the agency side. Again, we're driven by teams, and we see teams furloughing folks, laying off people, and just a ton of uncertainty on when people are actually going to get back in buildings. And knowing that's the case, it's challenging. It's challenging. So we're like a lot of other agencies. All of our revenue streams were more or less shut down. So we're doing our best to make ends meet and to try to find some way to make it out to the other side of this thing.
Do you think that this could help the agencies though in the short and long term? I mean, now, teams are really laying a ton of people off, and at some point they're going to have to revamp up. And I mean, it might not be to what it was before, but do you think this gives more opportunity for contract work like what Van Wagner does?
I think it could. What I really hope happens, and again, this is me kind of thinking just of ticket sales people in general. I really hope we rethink it. I think we've gotten lazy, and I think we've gotten complacent in the way we build out our teams and our structures. The world's changed dramatically, and we still sell like we did 10 years ago. And to me, that's a big problem. It's funny. I normally say we go on these pitch meetings or even just having conversation with folks that we deal with lots of teams, and we also deal with some folks on the outside. Just as an agency, we have brands that we work with as well. Like we worked with Fiserv on their relationship at the Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee. So we can kind of see both sides of the coin. And it's embarrassing. Like we're so far behind the times. So the sports world's probably 5 to 7 years behind where the rest of the world is in terms of how they sell. College is probably even worse than that. So yeah, I think coming out of this, we can be a whole lot smarter. I don't think there's the need for giant ticket sales teams anymore.
Oh, what's that?
I don't think there's the need for giant ticket sales teams anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, these 30, 40, 50 person inside sales teams, and I'm just calling out NBA teams because I remember reading about the Sixers having 120 salespeople in the office. But to me, it's overkill. But yeah, I think that outsourcing to some people who can use economies of scale and work with several teams simultaneously could be good. I think using technology and creating the right, I mean, it's all about cadence and all about responding to things the right way. Like if you can replicate what someone can do, even if it's 80% as good, and do it for substantially less, you can start spending more money wiser. Go out and get superstar salespeople. I get a lot.
So what do you think? What do you think on the technology side could be? I mean, do you use something currently that, has helped you, or are you just kind of speaking more in general about it?
We haven't used anything that I would tell you is earth shattering, but one of the things I've really looked to do since the middle of March is educate myself in everything that's out there. A lot of it's been the automated sales tools, the chat bots, the automation of some of the things that salespeople have to do, whether that's email follow up or the smarter lead gen type stuff.
And going back to your automation thing, I'm shocked that more teams don't have a solid automation system for, especially on the ticketing side. I mean, I know a couple of the teams that a lot of the major league teams do, but there's still a lot that are not that effective. And at my level, I mean, it's hard to convince, minor league teams to invest in it. But if they just saw the value where, by doing this, it does the work of what 5 people can do for the price of half a person.
Right.
That's the challenge I've had. I've been trying to get something like that set up, here.
And you would know better than I would, but anytime we try to analyze it, we haven't done a ton on the minor league level. A lot more of our stuff's been in the pros or in the big leagues. I always feel like minor league folks do an amazing job of getting more out of their people, right? Like the person who's selling tickets,
squeeze every ounce.
Right, they're doing something else throughout the entire game. They're they're wearing the mascot suit. They're up on top of the dugout. They're grilling hot dogs if need be. Like whatever it takes to get the job done. Whereas if you have one-trick ponies like you do at some of these big league clubs, it doesn't make as much financial sense. Yeah. And unfortunately, people just haven't turned to that quite enough. So I think there's a lot to be said about making sure teams are just aligned properly coming out of this stuff.
How do you manage, because you have staff throughout the country, so how is your style? How do you stay on top of it? How do you keep them motivated and performing at a high level?
Hire really good people and get out of their way.
Yeah,
that's it. Really, if I couldn't hire good people and rely on them to do their job, like my job with the Rangers was far too taxing. Like I was in charge of that relationship. Again, as we built it out at Van Wagner, that wasn't necessarily supposed to be the case, but that was the reality of it. And the contract made too much sense for us not to do it. So all of a sudden I had a lot more responsibility, and that was really the only way to do it. But at the same time, I think that's probably the best way to do it. My calls normally to folks are just like, what can I possibly do to support you?
Yeah.
What type of things are coming up that you're having trouble with that I can help influence? Maybe, if anything, maybe it was too hands off, but just
if you have the right people though, and that can operate independently and not need that handheld and constant checking in on, definitely makes a difference.
It took a while. That's sort of the culture that's been created. And I was coming from the opposite. I was so used to checking down on everything. I think I drove most of the people, the company nuts my first few months. Okay, like here's your daily email of everything that happened today. This is what I'm thinking about. Here's your weekly recap. You got it. Like we're good. We're
Yeah.
good. Like when you need us, call us.
We
When
don't need to meet just to meet, which I
exactly.
see way too many teams and organizations do. It's like, well, let's have a meeting about that. What are we meeting about?
Mhm.
This is this a lot of wasted time out there.
Before I left the Magic, we had a really smart thing come up. It was no meeting could be longer than 45 minutes. Maybe it was 50 minutes. And if there was no agenda, then the meeting was called. So if you couldn't send an agenda out beforehand, which again would just be meeting to meet,
Right.
then there was no meeting, and you had to limit it to 50 minutes because at that point in time, especially like you're an executive with the team, you're stuck going from this meeting to the next meeting. There's no time to even get a sense of what's going on and what you need to do. So I thought that was smart. I thought that was a smart thing to do. It's something I just tried to really reduce the number of meetings that people.
Yeah. Just, I mean, at least have them thought out, have them, be as quick as possible and as efficient as possible.
You know, the
Makes
agenda
a lot
thing
of sense.
the agenda thing really stuck. Like if you can't create an agenda for the meeting, then you have to pull off the calendar. Yeah, that's telling.
I like that. I might steal that one going forward. So what do you think's next kind of with Van Wagner, coming out of COVID here?
It's going to be really interesting. Um, I go back and forth on a week to week basis. I really do. I mean, at times I think things are coming back soon. At times I think they're not. We can kind of jump after the first thing that comes up, but historically we've always tried to take a little bit of a different approach than other folks in our space. We don't want that many relationships. And what I mean by that is if we could go chase 12, 15 different teams, try to work with them all simultaneously. But if we do that, we think our talent base gets stretched pretty thin and our most important people can't impact that relationship. Whereas if you're I don't know, like I'm trying to think of some of the articles I read. I just read an article about FC Cincinnati talking about trying to make some changes to the capacity of their building.
Yep.
We don't work with FC Cincinnati, but if we did, and they're trying to make some really big systematic changes to what they're doing because they had some really big numbers of suites and seat occupancy, things like that going in before all the COVID stuff hit. We wouldn't want our 12th best person helping them make the decisions on that. We want to make sure that people uh, that have done this many times over can offer the best possible support. So uh, maybe we grow it a little bit, and I guess part of that's going to be under my purview to help figure out exactly how big we want to get it. But I've always kind of liked that side of the way we approach things. So let's
Yeah.
make sure that we do every relationship incredibly well, as opposed to have a ton of relationships and have the ability to say anything bad about it.
Yeah. I mean, cause that's how you end up losing business
Right.
and going out of business.
Right.
In your role, are you also responsible for securing new business as well, as far as like new teams?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I do a lot of our biz dev work as well. It's not exclusive to me, but I'm part of the small group that does that.
What are
Uh,
the divisions that you guys have? I know, premium, and I think I think you guys do work with some or have worked with some minor league sports teams, baseball before
we
on
did.
the
Yeah.
advertising side.
We did. Yeah. We had so we ran that through our collegiate licensing division. So we have
Okay.
uh, so Van Wagner Sports as a whole, we have Dorna, which is that signage, like
Yep.
rotational signage, MLB and NBA stuff. We have where I sit, which is called our team advisory group, which is our naming rights, analytics, and ticketing, mainly premium ticketing. Uh, we have our collegiate licensing group, which we own, or we have relationships with 45-ish schools and licensing, and also a couple conferences. The minor league baseball relationships you're talking about ran out of collegiate.
Gotcha.
Uh, and what am I missing? Oh, we have our production team. So our production team is like the most unknown people out there, but they do a lot of the in-stadium production work for the Super Bowl and the Final Four and these big events. Strangely enough, the NFL called us to help with the draft. So when you saw those cameras that were in place for all those coaches, facilities, things like that,
Yeah.
we were the ones handling that and getting that feed over to ESPN and the NFL.
Nice.
So I think that's it.
A lot behind the scenes too that you wouldn't
Yeah,
even know.
yeah. Yeah, probably global sales too. So every once in a while we'll go out and we'll sell things on behalf of folks as well, but a lot more of that to do with consulting.
What kind of, is on the horizon, or, long-term plans for yourself? I mean, what are your goals career-wise? Anything? Do you have that kind of like, carrot you're chasing?
You know what? When I was younger, I thought I wanted to run all revenue for somebody. I've really kind of carved out a niche for myself. I mean, I've had the opportunity to really get laser focused on premium. I enjoy it. I like it. I like the science of it. I'm really analytical at heart, and it kind of fits nicely in that mold. Could I go back and work for a team? Sure. But I do like being able to impact as many folks as possible as well. So I do like kind of this third party avenue to get things done. Does that mean that if I get a call for a team president's job tomorrow, I'm not jumping at it? No, I'll take the phone call.
At
But
least listen. We'll listen. But
right, right. I think I've just kind of come to the conclusion that, I want to be respected as one of the people that really knows.
an expert in your niche.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. You know what? I mean, if I've worked on this many buildings and excelled in premium in those areas, like, I just want to feel like I can be turned to when people have questions in that space. I think that's sort of the character that's out there.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I struggle with in being in minor league sports, because I have to wear so many hats.
Mm-hmm.
And so, with my goal of, playing at a bigger level, I have to hone that in and probably pick one area. And, it's kind of what I'm trying to work towards. And, now I'm over all the revenue, but at a minor league club. Whereas, if I move to, Orlando Magic or a team, it's going to be, premium or tickets or partnerships.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's a challenge that's not unique to you. I think there's a lot of people who are in that same space.
Yeah.
Um,
So what do you think I could do to stick out, to stand out, and get an opportunity in the future?
well, I'm kind of putting some of the onus on that. I'm just helping you do so. And when I say you, I kind of mean everyone like you.
Right.
Hopefully it helps you too, Andrew. But anytime we get the opportunity to talk to any people in these senior leadership roles, team presidents, CRO types at these teams, I think they've become so conditioned with hiring a certain type of person for these various roles. And that's dated. That's dated thinking. And it's not giving us a diverse enough group of people in terms of their skill sets and life experience. We go through this whole thing. It's actually part of our sales training, but we go through this whole mentality that what you experience in life makes you a better salesperson. So again, I told you I'm analytical, so I normally put it up somewhere in the office. You can ask Brian. I don't know if you have nothing to say or not. I don't think I'd actually come to a point where I talk about it, but I didn't have it like as cleanly
Right.
as this. But put up a sign that says sales skills equal life skills. So as you get better at sales, you get better at life. And as you get better at life, you get better at sales. So all the things that you're dealing with and all the different avenues that you take and all the other experiences you're getting at the minor league level probably make you better prepared to be successful selling or leading sales than it would for somebody who's just really getting to see the same thing over and over and over again. And I don't think we really look at it that way. And I'm doing my little part to try to impact that, to make sure that we think about that a little bit differently. Our top salesperson for the Atlanta Braves is a former tennis player, professional tennis player. Sales background, all outside of sports. He was very, very little of it. And he killed it. He killed it because his life experience was so unique. All of a sudden, he was on the ATP tour. His career record was awful. I'm not going to tell you his name, you can mock him later. But he traveled the world. All of a sudden, all the people he's calling, he's like, "Oh no, I remember in South Africa when I did this. I remember when we were in Thailand and this happened." And, anytime anyone had something come up, he could relate back to it. And that's what
more
really
rapport
excelled.
quickly. Yeah.
So that's where he really excelled. So that's just one small example.
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice. I'm glad that we hooked up, because I'm taking some stuff out of this. I mean, I love your background, love what you guys are doing there. So, I mean, and the fact that you actually work with Brian too, I wanted to talk to somebody else that has done that.
Yeah, we probably could go through it. You and I have been in this business long enough. I'm sure there's more folks. If we really got
Oh yeah.
down to it, we'd find some other people we've worked with somehow, some way, or mutual connections along the way that we could have some good stories about. That's the good camaraderie part of this.
I do love that part of it. And it's very cool to see. It's what I really like as kind of like a sales leader is to see, people maybe that they start out as an intern with you or even an entry level sales and to see them progress up into, management and leadership roles and move on and up. That's pretty cool and rewarding for me. It's one of the things I enjoy the most.
Yeah, I I
So,
think, I think that may be the thing I enjoy the most. I
yeah.
do. Well, it's that, and then it's also seeing people. Like after you spend so much time and energy with people, training them up, building up their confidence, then to see them actually go out there and do it really
Right.
well.
Oh
And
yeah.
I mean, I've always made it a thing I do, no matter what, and I'm going to do it forever. Like, no matter how big the team is I'm managing or what role I get to, like I'm always going to go on sales calls. Not that many, not all the time. I'm not going to do it to try to steal the show or try to take the credit for when a sale gets closed,
Right.
but I like it. I still really do like it, and I think that that's where salespeople can learn the most. Like no matter what trainings we do or tell people this, that, the other, when they actually see it happen, um, that's where they really start to get better at it. So I love going to a sales meeting and, what I normally find early on when I start doing that with people, they sort of turn to me and they're waiting for me to talk to that person.
Right.
So I love when they don't even look at me in that meeting. They're like, oh, he's just here. It's annoying he's even here. Like I'm gonna
Right.
talk to
Yeah.
that.
I got this.
Yeah, that feeling is great. It's
Yeah.
absolutely.
Now up here, I've only been up here since January, and the sales team here has just, man, they have turned around, and when I got here, they lacked confidence. It was like, their dog died. Like everybody, the morale was just down, and just to get them confident, number one, um, and then just help build them up. I mean, they have had record week after record week, and it's just cool to see because I was kind of like, man, what did I get myself into? When I first got here, I was like, oh boy, um, I think I'm good, but I don't know.
Yeah, no risk, no reward. Come on now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Well,
good. January. That was perfect timing for you. Perfect chance to fight in the best sales season we've all collectively seen. This is,
crazy. We're building a new stadium. It's been interesting, but no, man, I appreciate you jumping on with me. I enjoyed talking to you. I want to definitely keep in touch, and I'm sure we'll have some more stories that we can share
yeah,
in the future.
let's do it. Would love that. Appreciate you making the ask.